I guess, charge a levy on passengers on cruise ships that visit Sydney Harbour. They want to see our Emerald City and our beautiful harbour and maintain it, get $1 a passenger. Given the thousands of people arriving in Australia, this could be significant as a new source of revenue. So we're not asking taxpayers to shoulder the burden upfront, but perhaps asking others. And so, what would that look like? I mean, could we try it? Would that cause, distaste for tourists? Would it, how acceptable would it be? And I kind of think we have to, we have to trial things in order to actually see what people are receptive towards, and attitudes have shifted in Australia over the last 15 years around, I don't know, I'm just thinking, the use of mobile phones of people in high school, there have been some very big societal shifts, I think, and so we've got to think, well, what we would not have considered 15 years ago is something we absolutely would consider now.
With that tax, I mean, every European city you go, you have to pay tourist tax to stay there, so I think it's not controversial at all.
Fascinating. All right, at this point in the panel, I think I'm going to open it up to questions from the audience. And I know we usually say questions, not comments, but actually you've all been very patient, so if anyone does have a quick comment, I also invite you to do comments in addition to questions. And I also invite the panel to ask questions of each other or the audience, so we want this to be dynamic. So did anyone have some burning questions from our panelists, either from their presentations earlier or what you've just heard now in the discussion that you wanted to ask about? Matthew? Oh, you need a microphone, sorry. Apologies, if we can have someone help us with a roving microphone, we'll just grab one of these. Thank you. What about that?
Thanks everyone, thanks for organizing this really interesting conversation today. Just to pick up on Abe's point about circular economy, we don't really use that language, etc. You're operating in a little nation, maybe that's part of it, but I guess I wanted to pick up on the question of awareness of circular economy as an opportunity, but also the underlying issues. What do you understand about current levels of understanding of the need to shift to circular economy, and how do we, mainstream the awareness of these issues in the same way that perhaps climate change and the like, certainly in the public consciousness, even though there's obviously very divergent views around that. I guess maybe looking at you, Liz, if you don't mind.
Oh, look, it's such a good question, and I think I mentioned before the ministerial advisory group process. So I imagine that the trade minister before that first meeting on design was like, well, circular economy, where's the briefing note on it? Like, what is that, and how, what on earth has it got to do with trade? So I think it's a very clever approach that Tanya Plibersek has set up, because she's bringing through her colleagues on this journey and all of their departments and everything else. And look, I think circular economy as a term's been around for a long, long time. It's life cycle analysis. It's, ask the scientists here, that will tell you it's been around for a long time. And I like circular economy because, hopefully it's a step away from the carbon wars. It's about our new economy. It has to be circular. We actually don't have anything else. There is no other solution. Like the climate carbon reduction policy framework is not enough to tackle this, right? We need something much bigger. So I like it because I think it's about the new economy, it's optimistic, it's affecting everything. It is a chance to create new products and services too, so that it's about growing jobs and industries. I do think that the level of awareness, it's definitely bigger than it was 2 years ago, so it's growing. The focus of the feds will also amplify that. We've just started doing training courses. We're going to be training local government, New South Wales, with EPA's funding it, and we'll be providing training for them, and then we're growing it with other departments because people are learning about it. And I think it makes sense and resonates because people, and giving them training courses will help amplify their handprint because they'll be able to affect change in their own area. there is definitely a need for an education campaign. That's what I've been banging on about at the ministerial level in the advisory group. We need to educate, and we've brought into Circular Australia, we have these titles, honorary titles of Chief Circular Engineer, which sits with Ali Abbas at the moment. It was Venus Sahashwala at UNSW, now it's Ali Abbas at UCED. We have Chief Circular Designer, and at the moment it's a woman called Layla Ajaralu, and I encourage you to look on our website and look her up. She's an absolute guru. She's written lots of books on design and changing design. She's running for the World Design Organization president at the moment. And so awareness building that way is great. And that's our approach to it. But I do agree with you, we need an education program. And Layla worked on changing curriculums in schools in Finland from kindergarten up, and it's something Circular Australia has proposed to the federal government.
Do you have a follow-up question
Yeah, real
there?
quick follow-up. I guess, yeah, just on the education, what is sort of the, like a lot of these global environmental issues can feel a little bit abstract and perhaps hard for us to grasp their significance sometimes, unless you're perhaps a little bit more embedded in these sort of forums. We all have I'd say we all have a fairly good understanding of a lot of the issues, you know, and we're working in our little niches. How can we sort of, or what advice or around sort of simple messaging that we can start to get out there and talking about why this issue matters? Any resources or advice about that? I know that, you know, at urban utilities where it's sort of parallel about water conservation and the case for drought resilient water supplies. Simple messages like we can't always rely on the rain, for example, really powerful. So yeah, any advice or any sort of directions in the research around that would be really useful to, you know, have this conversation with people.
I just wanted to commend Sydney Water, for example, and Jamie, you can speak to that, opening their facilities to the community so they can come and visit and see how things are done and how it's working. And I think for waste, what we are definitely missing, I can speak from that point of view, is if people went and saw the landfills, if they saw what happens to what they're doing, that would have a huge impact. And as you said, I've also heard about Finland being taught from kindergarten, that the concepts of circular economy are embedded from day one of their schooling. And I think that's something that we probably should change in our curriculum. I have kids at school, they do learn a lot about sustainability, and they do somehow talk about circular economy, but I think more can be done.
And just to add to that, is if you have a look at our website, there's lots of reports and tools, but I think that green hierarchy I showed you from the 10 R's now, because we've separated recovery and recycling, it's incredibly empowering. Like you take those principles and you apply it to your business or what you can do with your team or even yourself, and you will be surprised. There's changes in there that you can make.
Thank you. We have another question over here.
Thank you. I'm Sanjay from Gandon. Very nice to join all of you this morning. One of the key things that's missing is Indigenous knowledge, the wisdom. Australia has got an Indigenous population that has looked at climates for over 60,000 years, I'm told. I've lived in New Zealand for 32 years. The way the Te Reo Tangata Whanua principles are embedded within the policy framework, with resource management, with the action of utilities, is very different. It's a stark difference. I work within the sector with mining companies, with dairy companies, trying to get to real ways to give back to the environment. It's a missed opportunity, I feel, and I'd like your comments on this, where Australia has this treasure sitting there, but there is no communication, no recognition, nothing. There's no, seriously, I was very surprised when I arrived here in 2019, attended the first water conference, and other than the acknowledgement right at the beginning, there's no one to speak. Where is it? Second point, corporatization of the globe, corporatization at all costs is what we are facing the consequences of. Circular economy principles are great, but who are the leaders who are leading these corporates? Where is the decision making coming from? That to me is a real challenge. And I like your comments on this because it's a thing that I've written about, there's a part that always comes up in casual conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for those two really important comments. We have Lisa and Martina to respond, I think.
Yeah, I guess I wanted to make a comment on the traditional owner knowledge piece. So here, I guess the more I engage with Indigenous communities, they're very, very diverse and numerous across the country. So from where we operate, which is in the ocean, we are, I guess, in the marine sciences discipline, there would be someone who would open the conference who comes from a saltwater country. So I think there's a level of diversity and patchiness across the sectors of water and land and so forth that we're dealing with here. But they haven't necessarily been empowered, and this is why, first of all, that referendum is so important. But the more I work with these communities, I definitely think a place-based approach is a good one. And the Indigenous community, because I guess they have views on how much their place has changed through the history of colonisation, they are very powerful in the way that we might think about equity for current and future generations about what sort of environment they're inheriting. So we're sort of harnessing that power, if you like, in developing, sort of co-designing what sort of place-based solutions would look like. So that I guess we've got to start somewhere, and here I would say that the sheer diversity of language and cultural practices around Australia really do, I guess, at least that we get most traction when we're dealing with these very, I guess, localised communities. So I guess I'll hand to Lisa now. I've kind of can feel my passion here because, yeah, it's a long process of engagement if you start on this journey, and certainly after 3 years, I've felt that I've made good connections locally here in the Sydney region in Botany Bay. We're now starting to work in Sydney Harbour. But it takes a huge amount of trust building because of their experiences in the past. Something that I'm not personally responsible for, but they're very wary of sort of, oh yes, let's work together on these issues. The other point I would make is that in their understanding of the environment and the stories passed down from generations to generations, they're seeing changes in the environment that are unprecedented and are not part of their traditional knowledge, where they need evidence-based science to help understand what's happening to these places, why they're no longer mullet in Botany Bay, why we seeing a massive decline in crayfish. So I really do think that the knowledge systems used together are powerful here, not necessarily one or the other, but they're not necessarily integratable in the way that we might think either. So yeah, I do think that it's perhaps a heterogeneous field that we're in, but the issues are global. So there's a big challenge ahead, I think.
No, I absolutely agree with that, Martin. I think the diversity is really important to acknowledge. 500 different language groups in Australia initially. I think we only have about 189 now left, and some of those speaking groups, there's only a couple of people left that speak those languages. So we're talking about centuries of oppression and culture being taken away from generations. So the way the Australian government's approach to this with the circular economy is on that ministerial advisory group which I'm on. Is UTS's very own Professor Robin Quiggin is on that group. She's fantastic and has added huge input and important contribution to the group and continues to do that. From my perspective, Robin and I working together to look at economic opportunities and other opportunities around circular economy to feed into that framework. Clearly, 80% of the lands are Indigenous lands in terms of operationalising businesses across Australia, and the renewable energy transition is a real hotspot for that negotiation now, because a lot of those solutions, hydrogen and large scale solar and other, will be on those lands. So, I'm not so focused on the renewable energy transition other than recycling, but I think it's absolutely critical First Nations agenda. It's I went to the World Circular Economy Forum, and First Nations positions and approaches are front and centre of this, and it is about us taking this linear hyper-consumption model that's destroying the planet and changing that. And so hopefully this is a big opportunity to embrace First Nations agendas and expertise. And I think also our responsibility in the Pacific is really, really critical. These are islands, our neighbours, not just rising sea levels, but as I said before, the waste impact and also employment impact, because a lot of the men and women work in Australia. What's our contribution to their economies and skill sets and other things, and how are we listening? So I do agree that the Voice is a really important referendum coming up. We can never repair what's damage has been done to our Indigenous peoples in Australia, never. But we can seek to create a better future, and I hope that's the direction we're heading with circular economy and the vote of the referendum.
Thank you, Lisa and Martina. I think that's a really important point to finish up on. As you can see, we're 1 minute to morning tea time. If I could just ask the panellists their thoughts on, so we can end on a positive note about what's one big next step from the work that you're doing or your perspective that you think needs to happen now to get us on track to transition towards a circular nutrient or other types of economy, to make sure we're living within our planetary boundaries so that we reach our climate targets, so that we can produce food into the future and that we can secure our energy supplies. Just to make that a bit harder, in 30 seconds or less each. Thank you.
Oh gosh. I don't know. It's a hard question. I think I'm going to quote Einstein. I'm going to do that. So Einstein said, if I had 1 hour to solve a problem, I'll spend 55 minutes thinking of the question, and then 5 minutes to answer the question. I think maybe we should take that approach.
I like that. Well, all I can do is, I have the next Ministerial Advisory Group meeting, which I've talked to Sean about. It's coming up in October on the 9th, and the Treasurer will be there, and I'm feeding information about economic reform and other things on circular economy. So I will be sharing NICE's findings and opportunity for urine extraction and what's that potentially worth to the economy, and whatever other information Sean can give to me. So that's what I'm going to do.
Great.
I haven't answered the question, but
That's a concrete next step.
I'll stick with the granular perspective and pick off of Melita's comment. I think that with the urine recycling, what that looks like for us that we haven't done yet is looking at what are the actual full impacts of urine recycling, and what we want to recycle urine, we want it circular, but what are the costs of doing it in different ways? Because I think that we're a little bit blind in that way. We have a lot of focus on technologies and approaches for how to recycle urine and make it a good product, and we have done some quantification on how much energy or how much whatever is taken to do that, but really to zoom out and say, what's the big picture in terms of installing all these pipes and trucking, and some work has been done on that, but I think we have put a lot of work into technical development and need to put much more proportionally into understanding the impacts of implementing those technical developments in different specific niches where it could be effective.
Great, thanks.
After listening to those 3 responses, I'm still not any more wiser about what I would do, but here I think I would compel everyone to communicate more with people who are outside of our own disciplines, our own frames of reference, and I guess champion what's at risk if we don't secularize. That is my take home from this morning session. I would potentially also say that the frame provided by this morning gives me great motivation to keep going in this area and reach out to form collaborations. And I think place-based approaches may be the way that we might start to get integrated solutions. So look forward to talking with you all in the later part of today. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and thank you to the whole panel. It's been absolutely fantastic, and thank you so much for the questions that we had. Please join me in thanking our fabulous panel this morning. It's been really insightful, and I know I've certainly learnt a lot, and will have a lot to think about the rest of the day. And you've heard some interesting next steps that might need to happen now. As you probably saw in the program this afternoon, I think it starts at 5 o'clock, we actually have a road mapping workshop, which is being led by Aldo Ameto from, who's a visiting Griffith University. I can't see him and Cara, they're probably busy synthesising the information that came out of yesterday. So at this workshop, you'll be able to hear and contribute to more ideas about what are the concrete actions and the strategic opportunities that need to happen now to overcome some of the barriers and drivers towards a circular nutrient economy, and specifically a urine-based nutrient economy. How do we get there? So this will be a fantastic output from this conference, so please do come along 5 o'clock. I recognise it's competing with the poster sessions as well, but we look forward to seeing you there, and I won't stand between you and morning tea, which I assume is outside. And I don't know if Sean or anyone wants to say, remind everyone when we're coming back, what time. Does anyone have a program handy? 12:30. Okay, so we have half an hour. You can mingle and ask the panelists if you had any more burning questions outside. And thank you again. It's been a fantastic morning with you all, and I look forward to more chats.